Welcome to Famous People, English Stories. Ready to level up your English? Here we learn through stories slow, clear, and fun. Listen, relax, and enjoy the journey.
Introduction. Today's story is about one of the most famous tech minds in the world, Mark Zuckerberg. From a quiet kid who loved computers to the man behind Facebook, his story is full of ambition, challenges, and surprising moments. So, let's dive into the life of Mark Zuckerberg, the founder of Facebook, and see how a simple idea changed the way we connect with the world. Chapter 1. The Curious Kid from Dobbs Ferry. Mark Zuckerberg was born on May 14, 1984, in a quiet town called White Plains, New York. He grew up in a nearby village called Dobbs Ferry. His family was close and supportive. His father, Edward Zuckerberg, was a dentist. His mother, Karen, was a psychiatrist. Mark was the second of 4 children. He had 3 sisters, Randy, Donna, and Ariel. They all grew up in a warm, busy household filled with love and learning. From a young age, Mark was curious. He asked a lot of questions. He loved puzzles, games, and solving problems. But there was one thing he loved more than anything: computers. At just 10 years old, Mark got his first computer. It was a Quantex 486DX. This was in the early 1990s, when computers were big and slow, and the internet was just beginning. But Mark didn't care. He was fascinated. He wanted to know how computers worked. How do they think? How do they talk to each other? Instead of just playing games, Mark began creating them. His father noticed his talent and hired a computer tutor to help him go further. The tutor was shocked. After just a few lessons, he said Mark already knew more than he did. By middle school, Mark was writing his own software. He made a simple program called ZuckNet. It was a kind of private chat system for his family. His dad used it in his dental office to talk with the receptionist without yelling across rooms. It was simple but smart, and it worked. At school, Mark was known as quiet but brilliant. He loved science and math. He also loved ancient languages like Latin. While most kids were busy with sports or music, Mark was building things with code. He went to Ardsley High School, then transferred to Phillips Exeter Academy, a private school in New Hampshire known for its academic excellence. There, he won awards in science and classical studies. He also became captain of the fencing team. Even then, Mark balanced mind and body, coding and competing. One of his early projects was a program called Synapse. It was like an early version of Spotify. It learned what kind of music you liked and built smart playlists. He built it in high school, and big companies like Microsoft and AOL tried to buy it. They even offered him jobs. But Mark said no. He had bigger plans. He had a dream, and he was just getting started. In 2002, Mark entered Harvard University. It was the place of dreams, where bright young people from around the world came to learn, grow, and build their futures. Mark didn't know it yet, but he was about to build something that would change how people connect forever. But at first, Harvard was just school. He studied psychology and computer science. He didn't go to many parties. He didn't care about fashion or being cool. He spent most of his time in his dorm room, writing code, thinking, and building. In 2003, he built a website called FaceMash. It was simple and a little bit controversial. The site showed pictures of Harvard students side by side and asked users to choose who looked better. It was meant to be fun. But the school didn't agree. FaceMash used student photos without permission. Harvard took it down in just a few days. Mark almost got expelled. But something important happened. Even though the site got him in trouble, it also got attention. People saw what he could do. More than that, it gave Mark an idea. He realized that students wanted to connect online. They wanted to see each other's profiles, share pictures, and be part of something digital. There were websites out there already, but none made it easy. None were built for college students. What if there was a better way? Mark didn't stop. In January 2004, he started building a new website. This time, it wouldn't just compare people. It would connect them. It would be a real online community, a digital version of the student directory. He called it the Facebook. What started in a dorm room, with a few lines of code and a simple idea, was about to explode. Chapter 2: The Birth of Facebook. It was the cold winter of January 2004. Mark Zuckerberg was sitting in his Harvard dorm room, typing lines of code on his computer. The room was small and simple, but something big was happening. Mark had an idea, and he was turning it into reality. He was building a new website. He called it the Facebook. The idea was simple. Each student at Harvard had a profile. On the Facebook, they could upload a photo, share their name, their major, their class schedule, and even their interests. Students could also connect with friends and send each other messages. In a way, it was like your college yearbook, but online and alive. Mark didn't build it alone. He worked with a few friends. One of them was Eduardo Saverin, who helped with business and money. Another was Dustin Moskovitz, who helped write code. Chris Hughes helped with promotion and ideas. Together, this small team started something that would change history. The Facebook launched on February 4, 2004. At first, it was only for Harvard students. Mark and his team emailed a few people to try it. Then something surprising happened. Hundreds of students signed up, then thousands. Word spread fast. People liked it. They didn't just like it, they loved it. In just a few weeks, more than half the students at Harvard were using the Facebook. The demand was huge. Students at other schools wanted to join too. Can you open it to Yale? What about Stanford? What about Columbia? Mark and his friends saw the opportunity. They quickly opened the site to more universities. In just a few months, the Facebook had spread across the Ivy League and beyond. Students from all over the country were signing up. The little dorm room project was growing fast. But growth brought challenges. Mark was still a student. He had classes, exams, and homework. At the same time, he was running a website with thousands of users. It was too much. He had to make a decision. In the summer of 2004, Mark moved to Palo Alto, California, with his team. He wanted to focus on building the Facebook full-time. They rented a small house that looked like a typical college hangout. But inside, it was a startup. Computers on the tables. Pizza boxes on the floor. People coding all night. Ideas bouncing off the walls. In Palo Alto, they met big names in the tech world. One of them was Peter Thiel, a billionaire investor. Peter saw something special in the Facebook. He decided to invest $500,000 in the company. It was the first big step toward making the platform a real business. The money helped. Mark hired more people. They improved the website. They bought better servers. And they started planning how to reach even more users. Meanwhile, the Facebook dropped the "the" and became simply Facebook. But as Facebook grew, so did problems. One big issue came from three Harvard classmates, Cameron Winklevoss, Tyler Winklevoss, and Divya Narendra. They said Mark had stolen their idea. Months earlier, they had asked Mark to help build a social network called Harvard Connection, later called ConnectU. They believed Facebook was too similar, and they wanted credit. The Winklevoss twins sued Mark. It was a long legal battle. In the end, they settled the case. The Winklevosses received millions of dollars. But even today, people still debate, did Mark steal the idea? Or did he simply build it better? While the drama played out in court, Facebook kept growing. It opened up to more schools. Then it allowed high school students to join. Then, in 2006, Facebook did something bold, it opened to everyone. Now, anyone with an email address could join. The platform exploded. Millions of people around the world signed up. They created profiles, posted photos, shared their thoughts, and connected with friends. It wasn't just a college tool anymore. It was becoming a global network. Mark Zuckerberg was just 22 years old. But he wasn't interested in being a celebrity. He wore the same gray hoodie every day. He avoided the spotlight. He didn't care about money, at least, not at first. What he wanted was to grow Facebook. To connect the world. To build something lasting. Behind the scenes, Mark worked non-stop. He was focused, intense, and very private. He didn't talk much in meetings, but when he did, people listened. He had a vision, and he was willing to fight for it. Not everyone liked his style. Some early employees left. Some investors disagreed with his choices. But Mark stayed firm. Facebook was his baby. He was going to protect it. By 2007, just 3 years after it started, Facebook was valued at $15 billion. Mark Zuckerberg had gone from a college student in a hoodie to the youngest self-made billionaire in history. But for Mark, the journey was only beginning. Chapter 3: Growth, Power, and Controversy. By 2007, Facebook was not just a website, it was a movement. People around the world were logging on every day. They were posting photos, writing messages, joining groups, and building digital lives. It was something new. Something powerful. And Mark Zuckerberg was in charge. At just 23 years old, he had created one of the fastest-growing companies in the world. But success didn't mean he could relax. In fact, things were just getting more intense. Every day, millions of people were joining Facebook. That meant more users, more data, and more responsibility. Mark had to think fast. He had to make big decisions about design, safety, privacy, and money. One of his biggest decisions was to focus on growth. Mark had a simple idea: connect everyone in the world. He didn't just want millions of users. He wanted billions. To reach that goal, Facebook had to expand fast. It needed to work in every language, on every phone, in every country. So Mark and his team kept building. They added new features like the news feed, the like button, and Facebook pages for businesses and public figures. Some users didn't like these changes at first. When the news feed launched, people were upset. They thought it was too public. But over time, it became the heart of Facebook. Mark wasn't just thinking about features, he was thinking about the future. In 2012, Facebook made a huge move. It bought Instagram, a photo-sharing app that was growing fast. Many people were surprised. Why buy another social network? But Mark saw something others didn't. He knew Instagram could be a threat or an opportunity. The deal cost $1 billion. At the time, people said Facebook paid too much. But today, Instagram is one of the most valuable parts of Facebook's empire. That same year, something even bigger happened. Facebook went public. This means the company sold shares to investors on the stock market. The event was huge. News cameras watched as Mark rang the opening bell. The company was now worth over $100 billion. Mark became a billionaire on paper. But again, he didn't change much. He still wore his hoodie. He still rode a simple bike to work. And he still lived in a modest house in Palo Alto. But as Facebook grew more powerful, criticism also grew louder. People began asking hard questions. Was Facebook protecting users' privacy? Was it controlling too much information? Was it helping or hurting society? One major scandal changed everything. In 2018, news broke about a company called Cambridge Analytica. This company had used Facebook data, without permission, to influence voters during political campaigns. Millions of Facebook users had their personal information collected and used in secret. The world was shocked. Suddenly, people were angry. They felt betrayed. Governments began investigations. Facebook was called to testify. And at the center of it all was Mark Zuckerberg. For the first time, Mark had to sit in front of Congress. He wore a suit. He spoke slowly and carefully. Millions watched as he answered questions from U.S. senators. Some asked about privacy. Others asked about Facebook's role in politics, in mental health, in society. It was a tough moment. Mark admitted mistakes. He promised to do better. He said Facebook had to earn back people's trust. But trust is hard to rebuild. After the scandal, Facebook made changes. It added more security. It gave users more control. It hired thousands of people to review content and stop fake news. But for some, it wasn't enough. Critics said Facebook had become too big, too powerful. They said it was hurting democracy, spreading hate, and collecting too much data. Others defended the platform. They said it was a tool, and tools can be used for good or bad. It all depends on the people. Mark stood by his mission. He still believed in the idea, connecting people. But he also began to talk more about responsibility. He knew Facebook could shape how people think, how they vote, and how they live. That kind of power is dangerous and important. In 2021, Mark made another bold move. He announced that Facebook would become a new kind of company. A company focused not just on websites or phones, but on the metaverse. The metaverse is a digital world where people can work, play, and connect using virtual reality. It's like the internet, but in 3D. Mark believed it was the next big thing. He even changed the name of the company, from Facebook to Meta. The change was more than just branding. It showed where Mark wanted to go. He didn't want to be just the Facebook guy. He wanted to lead the next stage of the internet. Not everyone was convinced. Some people said the metaverse was a distraction. Others said it was exciting. No one knew for sure, but Mark was betting big. Through it all, he remained focused. Quiet. Determined. A mix of genius and stubbornness. He had started with one idea in a small dorm room. That idea had changed the world. But in Mark's mind, the story wasn't over. It was just a new chapter. Chapter 4, Meta, Mission, and the Road Ahead. Mark Zuckerberg stood on stage in October 2021, wearing his usual plain shirt and calm expression. But what he said shocked the world. From now on, he announced, our company is no longer called Facebook. We are now Meta. The change was not just a new name. It was a new direction. A new vision. A new future. For almost 2 decades, Facebook had been at the center of the internet. It connected billions of people. It shaped how we communicated, shared, and lived online. But now, Mark wanted to do something even bigger. He wanted to build the metaverse. But what is the metaverse? Imagine a world where you don't just look at a screen, you step into it. A world where you can walk, talk, work, and play inside a digital space. You wear a headset or glasses, and suddenly, you're not in your room anymore. You're in a virtual meeting room. A digital concert. A 3D classroom. A fantasy world. Or even your own private space where you can think, create, or connect. This is the vision of the metaverse. And Mark Zuckerberg believes it is the next version of the internet. To make this dream real, Meta began investing billions of dollars. They started developing new technologies, virtual reality, VR, augmented reality, AR, and smart glasses. They created a new platform called Horizon Worlds, where people could explore, build, and socialize in virtual spaces. Mark believed this would change everything. But not everyone agreed. Some people were excited. They saw the metaverse as the future of work, entertainment, and learning. Others were critical. They said it was too early, too expensive, or too risky. Some called it a distraction from Facebook's problems. After all, the company was still facing criticism over privacy, fake news, and online safety. And then, there was another challenge. For the first time in years, Facebook's growth slowed down. Fewer young people were signing up. Other apps, like TikTok, were taking over. Investors began to worry. Meta's stock dropped. People started asking, was Mark making the right choice? But Mark didn't stop. He kept building. He believed that big change takes time. And he had always played the long game. In interviews, he said, in the beginning, people didn't believe in Facebook either. They laughed at the idea. But we built it. We proved them wrong. And now, we're doing it again. Mark's focus wasn't just on technology. He also thought about society. About responsibility. He often spoke about freedom of expression, the power of community, and the need for safety online. Meta began building stronger rules to protect users, especially children. They added tools to block harmful content and limit screen time. They worked with governments to stop the spread of fake news and hate speech. It wasn't perfect, but it was a step. Meanwhile, Mark's personal life remained quiet. He married his longtime girlfriend, Priscilla Chen, in 2012. The two met at Harvard and stayed together through all the ups and downs. Priscilla is a doctor and philanthropist. Together, they created the Zuckerberg Initiative, a foundation to support education, science, and equality. They have 3 daughters. Mark often shares moments with his family on social media. He takes walks, bakes with his kids, and spends time reading. He even started learning new skills, like surfing and fencing again. In recent years, Mark has tried to show a more human side. Not just the tech CEO, but also a father, a husband, a learner. He has said, technology should bring us closer together, not push us apart. Today, Meta continues to grow. The metaverse is still being built, and the future is uncertain. But one thing is clear, Mark Zuckerberg is still dreaming big. From a curious boy in New York to one of the most powerful tech leaders in history, his journey has been full of ideas, risks, mistakes, and wins. He has changed how we connect, how we share, and how we live online. And he's not done yet. For English learners, this story is more than just about Facebook or Meta. It's about vision. About believing in something before the world sees it. About building, learning, failing, and trying again. It's a story of modern history, and it's still being written. Thank you for listening to the story of Mark Zuckerberg. See you next time, here at Famous People, English Stories, where learning English is always slow, clear, and fun.